My boyfriend sent me flowers, but they weren't meant for me. At first, I thought it was sweet red roses with a little cream-colored card that read, "Last night was unforgettable. Can't wait for round 2. Except, I hadn't seen him the night before. My sister had. And the look on her face when I read the card out loud? That's when my entire world cracked in half. Months later, he lost his job and showed up at my door banging like the building was on fire. You ever read something so absurd, your brain takes a full 10 seconds to process it? That was me, standing barefoot in my kitchen, reading the tiny cream-colored card tucked into a bouquet of red roses. My name was written on the envelope in messy black ink. But inside, last night was unforgettable. Can't wait for round 2. D. I hadn't seen my boyfriend last night. I blinked, reread it, then reread it again. My stomach dropped. My fingers went ice cold, even though I was standing right next to the oven, preheating for dinner. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a joke? A mistake? Flowers from someone else, delivered to me by accident? Then I heard the soft creak of the front door, and in walked my sister. Emma froze the second she saw the roses in my hand, and the color drained from her face like a scene from a movie. You know that moment where someone realizes the game is up? Yeah, that. What's wrong? She asked, too fast, too light. I held up the card, still trying to keep my voice steady. Did you see Daniel last night? There was a pause, a heartbeat, then she lied. No. Why would I? My hands were shaking. Because these were supposed to go to you, weren't they? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence was louder than any confession. I just stood there, heart thudding, as the little details started crashing into my brain. That weird vibe at Mom's birthday dinner. Emma suddenly being too busy for our usual Saturday brunches. The way Daniel stopped posting me on his stories after saying he was keeping things more private. And now the flowers. The card. Her face. It all made a sick kind of sense. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just turned back toward the stove, turned it off, and whispered, "Get out." Emma hesitated like she was about to defend herself, but there was nothing to say. Not when your sister's boyfriend sends you the love note that was meant for her. She left without a word, and I stood there alone, clutching a lie wrapped in cellophane. I should have burned the flowers. Instead, I texted Daniel, "Thanks for the roses. I didn't realize you were such a generous boyfriend." To both of us. He left me on red, but not for long. Because 2 hours later, my phone rang, and it wasn't Daniel. It was his mom. When Daniel's mom's name lit up on my screen, I almost didn't answer. I'd never had a bad relationship with her. She always called me her future daughter-in-law, always sent me little texts on holidays and tagged me in corny Facebook memes about soulmates. But right then, I didn't want anyone from that side of the universe in my ear. Still, I swiped. "Hi, Mrs. Albright." There was a long pause. Then, softly, "Sweetheart, I don't know what happened, but Daniel just came over here in a panic. He looked like he'd seen a ghost." I closed my eyes and leaned against the fridge, letting the cold metal cool the back of my neck. "Did he tell you?" Another pause, only that he messed up. That he might have ruined everything with you. He wouldn't say more. Of course he didn't. Daniel was always strategic like that. Confess just enough to look remorseful, not enough to take real accountability. I didn't want to drag her into it. But my voice cracked anyway. He cheated on me. With Emma. There it was. The words out in the open. It felt like vomiting up a truth I'd been choking on since the flowers arrived. I expected disbelief, maybe even some awkward defense of her son. But Mrs. Albright just sighed this long, tired sigh like she was too familiar with this kind of mess. "Oh, honey," she murmured. "I'm so sorry. I always knew Emma was complicated, but I never thought Daniel would." She stopped herself. "Wait, always knew? What do you mean complicated?" I asked, heart racing. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated, and then in the quietest, most hesitant voice, she whispered, "This isn't the first time your sister's done something like this." I felt my stomach turn. "Excuse me?" She dated her best friend's boyfriend in high school, broke them up, same thing again in college, with her roommate's fiance. I remember Daniel telling me it was a red flag, but she trailed off. "I never imagined she'd do this to you." My blood ran cold. So it wasn't just betrayal, it was patterned. This wasn't a mistake, it was sport, and I was her latest casualty. I thanked her numbly and hung up. My fingers trembled as I opened Instagram and scrolled through Emma's feed. There, buried in her stories from last night, was a flash of a table at Margot's, the wine bar Daniel took me to for our 2nd anniversary. A man's hand was across the table. His watch, Daniel's watch. Suddenly, I wasn't heartbroken. I was furious, because not only had they betrayed me behind my back, they were doing it right in front of me. And I was finally done playing the clueless girl in their game. It was time to flip the board. I've never been the type to seek revenge. Passive-aggressive texts? Sure. Quietly unfollowing you on socials before ghosting forever? Absolutely. But this was different. This was betrayal. With lipstick still on the wine glass I gave her for Christmas. This was my boyfriend and my sister, using the same cheesy pet names in their text. I found them when I checked Daniel's iPad, which he stupidly left synced to our shared account. I wasn't even snooping at first. I was just trying to cancel his HelloFresh subscription. Instead, I found a string of messages labeled E. Last night was, wish I was waking up next to you instead. You're so different from her. So much more fun. I stared at those words like they were hieroglyphics, waiting for my brain to stop buffering. And when it did, something inside me snapped. They wanted fun? Cool. Let's have some. I didn't yell. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I posted a story of my own. Just me, dressed up, holding the bouquet of roses that started it. All captioned, when your boyfriend accidentally confesses everything with a delivery. No names. No direct call-outs, but I knew it would stir the pot. Within 10 minutes, Emma viewed the story. Twice. 15 minutes later, Daniel texted, "Can we talk?" I left him on read. Then came Emma's message. I don't know what you think you saw, but I didn't even finish reading it, because I had a plan now. And step 1? Make them both squirm. That night, I showed up to our parents' place for dinner. Mom was already buzzing about some charity gala they wanted me to go to. Daniel should come too, she chirped. Oh, sweet summer mother. I just smiled. Oh, Daniel won't be joining us anymore. Her face fell. Why not? I took a slow sip of my wine. He's been busy. With Emma. The silence was instant and thunderous. My dad set down his fork. My mom's eyes darted between us like I'd just announced one of them had a secret second family. Emma, of course, wasn't there yet. Late, as usual. But when she finally waltzed in 10 minutes later in one of my old dresses, the whole room went dead quiet. And I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Thanks for looking after my leftovers. Hope he doesn't give you food poisoning." She flushed so hard I thought her makeup might melt. Mom stammered something about sitting down. Emma made up some excuse about traffic and allergies, but the vibe was set. The tension? Chef's kiss. I stayed exactly long enough to eat half a baked potato, then got up and said, "Anyway, I've got a date. With someone who isn't secretly banging my sister." Mike. Drop. I left her there with my confused parents, a wilted salad, and whatever guilt she managed to locate in that dusty little soul of hers. But the best part, Daniel saw the whole thing play out on my story. Because my new date was actually my best friend's cousin, Jordan. Tall, hot, and very much in on the plan. We staged the entire thing with fake wine, a skyline view, and the perfect caption, upgrade season. New flowers, new energy. Daniel's next text, "So you're just gonna pretend like this didn't mean anything? Pretend." Sweetie, I learned from the best. You know that eerie calm right before a storm? That's where I lived for the next 48 hours. Daniel kept texting. Emma kept pretending everything was being blown out of proportion. My parents didn't know who to believe. And I was just floating in this weird, hollow space between heartbreak and adrenaline, until I got the screenshot. It came from someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year, Sophie, a girl Emma used to room with back in college. She slid into my DMs out of nowhere, said she saw my cryptic story, and felt like I needed to know what kind of person Emma really was. And then she sent it. A screenshot of Emma texting her during college. He has a girlfriend, but like, if he's flirting with me, that's on him, right? LOL. I'm not stealing, I'm just better. My hands clenched. My jaw did that tight, grindy thing it does when I'm trying not to cry or scream. Sophie followed up with, "I know it's old tea, but when I saw your story, I got deja vu. She did this to me too. We were best friends. She hooked up with my boyfriend while I was asleep. In the next room." I felt sick. This wasn't just Emma betraying me. This was who she was. It was a pattern. She didn't just cheat with people's partners. She thrived on the power of being chosen over someone. And this time, I was the one she needed to beat. That night, I couldn't sleep. My brain was running every conversation we'd ever had on loop. Every subtle jab she'd made. "You and Daniel are cute. But like, don't you ever wonder if he's just playing house? If I ever dated a guy like him, I'd probably be a little more exciting in bed." I used to laugh those comments off. Thought she was just being weirdly single and flirty. I didn't realize she was testing the waters. And Daniel? He was just spineless enough to wade right in. The next day, I did what any emotionally devastated woman with access to Canva and a sense of justice would do. I made a collage. Yep. A full-on, aesthetically curated grid of every screenshot, every incriminating DM, every tagged location matchup, and the infamous flower card. I blurred names mostly, but it didn't take much to figure out who was who. Captioned it, "How to lose a sister in 10 texts. Cheaters unite." I posted it to my private story. Friends only, but people talk. And Emma? She saw it. Within 2 hours, she texted, "You're being immature. If you had something to say, you could have just come to me." Oh no, sweetheart. You don't get to play victim now. I replied with one sentence. You came into my house, slept in my life, took my future. And now I'm supposed to be polite? No response. Then came Daniel. Can we please talk in person? I messed up, okay? But this doesn't have to end ugly. Too late. It was ugly. And the ugliest part was still coming. Because the very next day, someone else messaged me. Her name was Melanie. And she said, "Hey, I don't know how to say this, but I think I dated Daniel while he was still with you, Melanie." Just that name made my heart start racing. Not because I knew her, but because I didn't. She was a total stranger, and she was about to blow up the last thread of the reality I'd been clinging to. Her DM was short, casual even. "Hey, this might sound random, but I think I was seeing your boyfriend. We met on Hinge in December. He told me he was single. December. Daniel and I were still together, still talking about moving in, still doing lazy Sunday brunches and arguing over paint swatches for the apartment. He said he wanted us to get together." My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Daniel Albright? Tall, dark hair, drives a blue Ford Bronco?" Melanie replied almost instantly, "Yep, that's him. I'm so sorry if I'm right. I just saw your post going around and recognized him." I asked for proof. She didn't hesitate. In the next 5 minutes, she sent me screenshots of texts, a boomerang of them clinking drinks at a rooftop bar, and a selfie of them in his truck. My truck, technically. It was registered under my name because Daniel had bad credit. My vision tunneled. One text thread stood out like a flashing red light. "Melanie, so when's your last relationship?" "Daniel, few months ago. She wasn't supportive of my goals." I read it 3 times, then laughed. Wasn't supportive? I paid for that man's Photoshop subscription so he could launch his fake graphic design side hustle. I drove him to interviews. I helped him write his resume. And he told a stranger I held him back? I stared at that photo of the 2 of them in the truck and felt a new kind of rage. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was humiliation soaked in gasoline. He wasn't just cheating, he was rewriting the story while I was still living in it. That night, I didn't cry. I planned. I told Melanie everything. About the flowers, about Emma, about how Daniel had probably been juggling us all like some twisted circus act. And Melanie? She was furious. Oh my God, I had no idea. He even told me he didn't want labels yet because he was working on himself. We came up with a plan. Because Emma thought she was the only one. And Daniel clearly thought he could control the narrative. So we let him. We let him think I was spiraling. That I was just posting vague emotional things while crying into throw pillows and romanticizing my Spotify breakup playlist. And while he was watching that version of me online, I was working with Melanie to take the story back. She had a video. One she took just 2 weeks ago, Daniel singing along to some old Drake song in my truck while holding her hand. It was the caption that got me though. He said he's never been with someone who gets him like I do. The man was running parallel love stories like Netflix originals. I knew what I had to do. The next morning I messaged Emma. Not to fight, not to scream, but to offer her everything. All the screenshots, all the receipts, Melanie's photos, her messages, the truth. Because if I was going to burn this bridge, I was taking down the whole damn highway system with it. Emma responded with one word, liar. I expected that. But I also expected what came next. Daniel, blowing up my phone. Why are you doing this? You're ruining lives. We can fix this, don't do anything crazy. But I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was finally doing something real. And step 1 was sending that video to Daniel's boss. Because remember that graphic design hustle I helped him build? Turns out, he used company equipment to shoot some of those projects, including the one where he took Melanie to his office after hours. Daniel always thought he was smarter than everyone. He talked in circles, spun half-truths like cotton candy, and wore charm like armor. But charm doesn't protect you from receipts. And Melanie and I, we had receipts for days. Sending that video to his boss wasn't petty, it was necessary. Why? Because Daniel worked for a boutique creative agency with strict client confidentiality clauses. And that cozy little clip of him flirting with Melanie inside their editing suite, with recognizable client branding on the screen behind them? Yeah, let's just say it didn't land well. I used a burner email to forward it anonymously, attach the date stamp, the footage, and a few well-chosen screenshots of him bragging about borrowing office gear for personal projects. By noon, Daniel was suspended pending an internal review. By 3 p.m. he was fired. And by 4 p.m. he was outside my apartment banging on my door like the building was on fire. I didn't answer, but I did peek through the peephole, just to see the full meltdown for myself. Hair messy, face red, pacing, talking to himself. He kept pulling out his phone, typing furiously, then deleting. I know that look. It's the look of someone realizing the story he curated is crumbling, and he's the villain in every version. He eventually slid a note under the door. A literal handwritten note, like we were in the 1800s and he was some tortured poet. It read, "Please don't do this. I messed up. I lost everything. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I almost laughed, because that was the moment I realized he only wanted to talk now, because he had nothing left to protect. Meanwhile, Emma? Radio silence. She blocked me on everything. No apology, no acknowledgement, just silence. But I knew she was unraveling too, because Mom called that night, voice trembling, and said, "Your sister came over. She's not doing well." I wanted to feel something. Pity, satisfaction, anything. But all I felt was done. Done trying to protect people who didn't hesitate to hurt me. Done with fake apologies. Done pretending like closure was something I owed them. Melanie and I met up that evening at a coffee shop halfway between our neighborhoods. First time meeting in person. We both ordered lavender oat milk lattes because, apparently, our taste in beverages was better than our taste in men. We laughed, hard, about the absurdity of it all. About the fact that we were both told the same lines, that he used the same Spotify playlist on us, that he reused date spots like we were characters in a looped simulation he'd designed. "He ever take you to Cafe Loa?" she asked casually. I blinked. "That's where he told me he loved me for the first time." She snorted. "Yeah, that's where he asked me to be exclusive. Last month." We sat there in stunned silence before dissolving into manic laughter. And that's when I said it. "I'm going to post the whole story." She looked at me over her cup. Like, everything? Everything. The truth. The screenshots. The video. The timeline. The flowers. Emma. You. Me. The whole twisted plot. Not out of revenge. Just so I finally own the story. She nodded slowly, then smiled. "I'll help." The next morning I started writing. The real version. No filters. No poetic language to soften the edges. Just the raw, hideous, humiliating truth. It was like ripping out stitches, one by one. But also like finally healing. Because if there's one thing Daniel taught me, it's this. People will write you into whatever role benefits them most, until you take the pen back. And I was ready to write the ending myself. It took me 4 hours, 2 mental breakdowns, and 1 emergency cookie dough binge to finish writing it. The post. The one where I aired everything. I titled it, "Flowers for My Sister, a cautionary tale about love, lies, and the boy who thought he could get away with everything." It was long. Like, unhinged Tumblr thread long. But I didn't care. I wanted every single detail on record. I didn't name anyone directly. I blurred out usernames and phone numbers. But if you knew, you knew. And apparently, a lot of people knew. I hit post at 11:37 p.m. on a Thursday night, thinking maybe 40 people would see it. By the time I woke up at 7 the next morning, it had 22,000 shares. And counting. The messages started flooding in almost immediately. Women I didn't even know DMing me saying, "I think I dated him too." People from Daniel's old high school saying, "He was always like this." Even a girl who once matched with him on Bumble and ghosted because he gave her weird vibes. It was like watching the puzzle pieces of my heartbreak fall into place in real time. And the comments? "Girl, write a book. This is why women have trust issues." I gasped at the Emma part. "You're telling me her own sister? He's so lucky this isn't the 1800s, or he'd be tarred and feathered in town square." I laughed. I actually laughed. The kind that bubbles out of your chest like you're releasing something poisonous. I wasn't the broken girl sobbing on the floor anymore. I was the narrator. Around noon, Melanie texted me. "So, he texted me. How could you do this to me?" LOL. I grinned. Tell him karma works fast when it has Wi-Fi. Then came the cherry on top. A message from an account I didn't recognize. No profile photo. Just a blank page. The message read, "You ruined my family." I blinked. "Emma?" I typed. No response. But I knew. And here's the thing. I didn't ruin anything. I just refused to keep their secrets. By that weekend, the story had been picked up by a few TikTok drama accounts. You know the kind, someone with a soothing voice reading the post while soft piano music plays in the background and sad captions flash across the screen. And even though it was my pain being picked apart for entertainment, I didn't mind, because for the first time, people saw me. Not the girl who got cheated on. Not the girl who lost her boyfriend or her sister. The girl who walked through the fire and came out swinging. Sunday morning, Daniel texted one last time. "Congrats on your 15 minutes of fame. Hope it was worth it." I stared at the message for a long time. And then, I replied, "It wasn't for fame. It was for freedom. But thanks for the inspiration." Blocked. Deleted. Done. But I still wasn't done with my sister. You think you're doing fine dancing in your red dress, sipping cocktails with your girls, posting cryptic captions that scream "I'm thriving GGG," and then life's like, "Ah, sweetie, not so fast." For me, that moment came on a random Wednesday afternoon at Trader Joe's. I was halfway through grabbing my favorite frozen gnocchi when I heard her voice behind me. Wow. Guess fame really does change people. Emma. I froze. Not because I was scared, but because I didn't trust myself not to throw a bag of everything bagel seasoning at her face. I turned around slowly, keeping my expression neutral. She looked rough, like she hadn't slept, makeup smudged, hair in a messy bun that said I'd been spiraling for 72 hours straight. And for once, she wasn't wearing my clothes. Small miracles. I stayed silent. So she kept going. You could have just called me instead of humiliating me in front of the entire internet. I blinked. She felt humiliated? You slept with my boyfriend, I said flatly. Not just anyone, mine. And instead of apologizing, you gaslit me and acted like I was being dramatic. Her lips parted, like she had some kind of comeback lined up, but I cut her off before she could try it. By the way, did you know he was dating Melanie too? Because surprise, you weren't even the only side piece. That hit hard. Her face crumpled for half a second before she pulled it back into her usual, "I'm better than you" glare. I didn't know, she whispered. I believe that, I said. You were so focused on competing with me. You didn't even realize you were just another girl he was using. Silence. For the first time in our entire messy, tangled sisterhood, Emma looked small, like the fight had finally drained out of her. She swallowed. So, what now? We just don't speak again? I shrugged. That's up to you. But I'm done protecting people who don't protect me back. She looked like she wanted to argue, but instead, she just nodded once, eyes glossy, and walked away aisle 3, past the hummus. And just like that, it was done. That night, I sat in my apartment alone. No Daniel, no Emma, no noise, just me, a face mask, lavender tea, and the sound of my own peace settling in like warm blankets. I scrolled through my DMs, hundreds of women, still messaging me, thanking me for sharing my story, saying it made them feel less alone. But just as I started to relax, my phone buzzed with a notification. An email. From a sender I didn't recognize. Subject line, "There's something you still don't know about Daniel." I didn't open the email. Not yet, anyway. Because after running through a hurricane of lies, betrayal, public humiliation, and emotional whiplash, I needed closure. But not from Daniel. From her. My sister, Emma. The girl I shared bunk beds with growing up. The girl I cried with when our parents fought. The girl who used to braid my hair before school and steal my clothes before parties. The girl who, somewhere along the line, stopped seeing me as a sister and started seeing me as competition. Later that night, I texted her one sentence. "Meet me at the park. The one with the swing set. 7 p.m. No drama. Just truth." To my surprise, she showed. She looked even more worn down than before. Hair still in that messy bun, oversized hoodie, probably borrowed from some ex-boyfriend she didn't want to admit she missed. No makeup, just Emma. The real one, for once. We sat on opposite swings, like we were kids again. Except this time, there was a massive graveyard of trust between us. I broke the silence first. Why? Her eyes didn't meet mine. I don't know. You don't know? I repeated, voice shaking. You don't know why you slept with the one person I trusted most? The one person I thought was mine? Emma flinched. I didn't mean for it to happen. I cut her off. Stop. Stop saying that. Affairs don't just happen. You chose it. You chose him. She was quiet for a long time. Then finally, she said something real. I was jealous of you. I blinked. What? You've always been the golden one, she whispered. The one who people believed in, who looked like she had her life together. I felt invisible next to you. And when Daniel started complaining about you, saying you were distant or cold, I felt like I finally had something you didn't. The honesty made my stomach twist, because deep down, I got it. I'd felt like that around her too, Emma, the effortlessly charming one. The girl who walked into a room and everyone turned to look, who always got the guy, even if he wasn't hers to take. But I didn't say that. I couldn't. Because understanding someone's pain doesn't mean excusing the damage they caused. I'm not perfect, I said. I know that. But I would have never done this to you. Ever. Tears welled in her eyes. I know. And for the first time since the whole thing blew up, she looked genuinely broken. Not performative, not dramatic, just wrecked. I lost you, she whispered. I lost my sister. I looked at her. Really looked. And here's the thing, I didn't hate her. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of being the bigger person. Tired of pretending we could rewind time. Tired of carrying grief for someone who didn't carry me when it mattered. You didn't just lose me, Emma, I said, standing up from the swing. You gave me away. For attention. For ego. For scraps of validation from a guy who wasn't even worth it. Her shoulders sagged. I'm sorry, she said. Truly. I nodded. I believe you. But it doesn't change anything. I started to walk away, then paused. Take care of yourself, okay? She nodded. tears slipping down her cheeks. And that was it. No dramatic hugs, no promises to stay in touch, just quiet closure between two sisters who once shared everything, until one of them crossed a line they could never uncross. As I walked back to my car, the sky turned that soft lavender blue color right before sunset. I didn't feel angry or bitter. I felt free.